If you've ever been filling up at a gas pump and you haven't wondered why the "I did that" gas pump vandal sticker is a picture of Biden and not Reagan, well, you should wonder. But don't worry, I'm here to tell you why the Reagan raping you take at the pump and every month when you open up that utility bill is in no small degree Ronald Reagan's fault, in another installment of the inconsistent miniseries Everybody Hates Reagan. Now, human beings have long been notoriously bad for the environment. We've hunted animals to extinction, destroyed natural habitats, spread invasive species and diseases, but with the Industrial Revolution, we became really efficient at fucking shit up in new and interesting ways. Thick, toxic smog would hang in big cities like New York and Los Angeles. Acid rain washed the faces off of statues and the words off of gravestones that were hundreds or even thousands of years old. The river running through Cleveland, Ohio, caught on fire 13 times between 1868 and 1952. Just take a moment to comprehend how polluted a river needs to be where it catches on fucking fire. And what do you do when the substance you use to put out fire is on fire? And a good portion of the increasing environmental issues we were facing revolved around what we used for energy, which was almost exclusively oil and coal. The issues got so bad that none other than cartoon villain Richard Nixon created the EPA in 1970. And the Environmental Protection Agency has benefited our economy to an estimated tune of $2.5 trillion. For lack of a better analogy, it turns out if you tell Grandpa he can't chain smoke in the living room, it increases home equity and saves on family medical bills. And then a few short years later, in 1973, we learned that our energy reliance on fossil fuels was not only unhealthy for ourselves and our environment, but it could be pretty unhealthy for our economy too. Because the Arab oil-producing nations decided that they were going to punish us for our support of Israel. Another painfully relevant topic again today. We're going to embargo us and just not give us oil anymore, which I don't know if you've noticed is something we use a lot of, which really sucked for America, world police, because we're used to being the ones doing the embargoing and sanctioning. And now the most powerful nation in the world had been crippled because of our reliance on a global commodity for our energy needs. Makes it really hard to be world police when we don't have enough gas to fire up the cop car. And like any reasonable, rational society, we're like, hey, what can we do to fix this problem to make sure it doesn't happen again? In steps a man with a plan, Jimmy Carter. And he's like, hey, maybe, just hear me out, guys. Just spitballing here, but what if we made it so our energy needs weren't so dependent on people who fucking hate us? I know, radical idea, but just let it marinate. We just put a dude on the moon. I'm pretty sure we can figure this out. And Jimmy Carter started doing fucking work. He created the Department of Energy. He deregulated oil and gas. He actually subsidized coal. He banned any new power plants being built that would use oil or natural gas to help stabilize demand on the market. He worked on a bunch of right here and now policy solutions to fix the energy crisis we were facing right here and now. But because he's not an idiot, he realized that these were just band-aid solutions to alleviate the current symptoms and wouldn't cure the problem. So he passed the National Energy Act of 1978 and the Energy Security Act of 1980. These policies focused on long-term increases in automobile fuel economy. They put real, tangible funding and support behind the R&D and implementation of renewable energies. In the Navy, he was a nuclear engineer, and he put big support behind nuclear energy. And then he put solar panels on the roof of the White House, saying that the United States is committed to strengthening our national security, our individual and environmental health, focusing on tangible, empirical, and science-based solutions to become more energy independent. And then he got voted out and replaced with a genuine moron who said, and I quote, "Trees cause more air pollution than cars do." I just want to say that if you tell me you support this man or a guy who said that wind turbines cause cancer and kill whales, I think you're stupid. And I don't mean that in an insulting way. I genuinely mean that as I believe you do not have a fully functioning brain. There's just no other explanation. Like, I get if you don't understand the nuances of policy, but when somebody says trees pollute more than cars, all I'm saying is that's beyond not being the brightest bulb on the Christmas tree. That's the equivalent of being the bulb that when it goes out, all the lights on the Christmas tree go out. It's that dumb. Anyway, Reagan gets in there and he's just like, what can I fuck up today? And he immediately starts pushing back fuel economy regulations for cars by years. He appoints Ann Gorsuch, a corporate lawyer and legislator who opposed the Clean Air Act, to head the EPA, and James Watt for the Department of Interior, who tried to open up national parks to coal mining, both of whom were fired in 1983 for corruption and saying racist, sexist, ableist shit. Side note for another video, Ronnie's administration was one of the most corrupt in U.S. history. Party of law and order Carter and all that. Anyway, them with Reagan fought tooth and nail to try to undo the Clean Water Act, the Clean Air Act. Reagan vetoed a reauthorization of the Clean Water Act, which was overridden by Congress. He cut Jimmy Carter's funding for renewable energies by 85%. The EPA's operating budget fell by 27%. The science budget fell by 58%. The EPA's staff was cut by 21%. And every place that they couldn't undo environmental or energy policies or cripple operating budgets and staff, they reorganized staffing structures and harassed and intimidated staff to make them almost incapable of doing their jobs. Because if you can't undo the will of the people, just break it, literally and figuratively. As a result, enforcement of the already relaxed regulations fell by about 75%. And then this anti-bureaucracy administration created the Office of Information and Regulatory Affairs, which was literally just a department designed to use bureaucracy to make other departments like the EPA incapable of doing their job. Government doesn't work, and I'm going to prove it to you by making sure it doesn't work. In 1988, Ronald Reagan removes the crude oil windfall profit tax passed by Jimmy Carter 8 years earlier, but arguably the most cringeworthy thing he did was pulling Jimmy Carter's solar panels off the roof of the White House in 1986. Because there was no reason for it. They were paid for, they were installed, they were operational. It was done solely to give a giant middle finger to the American people, to our country, to our economic, environmental, energy, and national security, and the future generations that would suffer all the consequences of his actions. But what can we expect from a literal traitor who repeatedly sold the United States out to terrorists and foreign adversaries for his own personal gain? Ronald Reagan's environmental and energy policy put the United States and the world decades behind on energy technology. It caused us to lose our position as the world leaders in these technologies to the two countries we defeated in the Second World War as a result of our resolve and dedication to science and technology. And China now leads the world on solar water heating, the same exact technology that Ronald Reagan pulled off the roof of the White House nearly 40 years ago. And all of this is just a depressing reminder of how far the United States has fallen, the setbacks and the damage these policies did to our country and the entire world, and just another reason everybody hates Reagan.